Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Louis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Louis Bright Raven, 29-year veteran writer, illustrator, and editor of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And tonight, our guest is veteran artist and writer TED NAIFEH, best known for his gothic teenager COURTNEY CRUMRIN. And we're going to be talking about that series, as well as several other projects of his, but mostly we'll after we get through a kind of a retrospective, we'll be talking heavily about his new series, Witch for Hire, which just came out like 2 or 3 weeks ago from Amulet Books from Abram. And without further ado, he's out of the camera. You moved out of the camera. There you go.
Oh, I didn't. I was making my entrance.
So how are you today, sir?
I'm fantastic. I'm doing okay. How about you?
Well, it's been an interesting weekend. So we kind of had a last second grab all my graphics, put it together to the last second, but we got it all done.
I know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
The darn editor programs just won't cooperate.
No, they won't. Now, I've known Ted tangibly since he started in the business in the late 90s with a little series called GLOOMCOOKIE for slave labor graphics. As I was telling him, reminding him, I met him back at San Diego Con in 99 when the book came out. He and his collaborator on that book, writer Serena Valentino, had been out to lunch, and I came to the SLG booth, and Evan Dorka and Sarah Dyer were kind of like really gung-ho about it and pitched the book to me. and then Ted came in, and I was like, oh, this is cool. But like I was saying, when Sarah first started pitching the book to me, GLOOMCOOKIE, what is this, about a goth bakery?
Which would have been a great idea.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It was well, what was it about? Let's see what it was about. Well, here we go.
GLOOMCOOKIE.
Here we go. I call it a goth-infused satirical soap opera, and it focuses on the star-crossed relationship between goth clubber Lex and her friend and lover. I'm trying to remember if it was Max or Damien. That was her friend.
It is Max. Well, there was Max. The cover here features Lex and Max, who the original series was based around. The first few stories were based around, but then Lex falls into this fantastical adventure with somebody named Damien, who turns out to be a sort of a demonic character. And of course, as you know, because love conquers all, she ends up happily ever after with Damien. Sorry, spoilers.
Yeah, but that's okay. Like I said, it's been a while since I found the series and I couldn't find it. So I was like, this is like, hopefully I got my memory right. But this was Max at the beginning. There's also Isabella, the queen of the goth community, who enjoys exercising her hold over everyone else. And finally, there's Sebastian, who doesn't know anything about his past, and his girlfriend, KRISS, who wouldn't have heard a fly before meeting the monster hidden under Sebastian's bed. All of these characters have their own stories intermingling and with other characters involved as the series unfolds. The series, of course, does continue with other artists because Ted left after the first arc of 6 issues, but the series did run for 28 issues with 5 trade collected volumes. Now, why did I stop buying GLOOMCOOKIE? Basically, it was a pain in the butt to track down. Most comic shops back in that time were not particularly supportive of the slave labor books in general because of them being an indie publisher. And I often had to wait to go to San Diego Con, or if I drove to Las Vegas, I think I got issue 4 at a Hot Topic, like I said. And with Ted leaving the book, that story arc done, it was a good place for me to stop. For me. Now, that doesn't mean that it wasn't still a good series, or that after Ted left the book, because he left the book after the first, and we'll talk about why he did that in just a moment. But like I said, the funny part of this was I met them and got into this book because Sarah Dyer was gushing about it. And she wanted to know what I had thought about it because I had done scouting work for Dan Votto, the publisher for SLG before. And I guess at the time she thought I was aware of the book and I wasn't. I'm not going to give a rating because it's been so long since I've read it. It's probably been 15 or 16 years since I've read it last. So it's not really fair for me to say, well, yeah, you know.
Right.
But we got plenty of other things to talk about there, but which is, of course, next Courtney Crumrin. But let's talk a little bit about GLOOMCOOKIE. Like I said, you did leave after the first 6 issues, and why did that happen?
I wanted to write my own stuff. It turns out that I love comics because I like telling stories. And I loved illustration that told stories, but comics, I was attracted to the medium because I love drawing and I love telling stories, and you could do both with comics. And so no matter how much fun I was having on a written, doing art, on a project, I felt like there was a side, there's the most important side of a comic book was a part that I was missing out on, which was the storytelling aspect, the part where I was deciding what it was going to be about. I was building characters, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of still feel that way, even though I love illustrating other people's comics and I love writing for other illustrators. I find that I'm most happy when I'm doing both and doing all aspects, not just writing and drawing, but coloring and even lettering. I'm like really kind of getting turned on by lettering these days.
That's interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. But that makes sense. Always we have these people. Oh, he left the book because he and Serena had a falling out, and then they don't like each other, and it's like, why do people come up with this stuff? But I figured I'd give you the floor and let you say.
Well, I mean, I did feel creatively stifled, and full confession, I was kind of a jerk about it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna pull any punches. I was a jerk. I felt like I was doing more of the work. I mean, honestly, I was doing more of.
Well, physically, it is more intensive for the artistic side than the writing side. That has to be an accepted reality.
But the reality was, I was not cool about it. And if you hear Serena's side of the story and she's being nice about it, she's probably being nice about it because I was a jerk about it, and I did, grumpily march off the project feeling underappreciated. And I think that, in retrospect, we've talked about it. I've apologized. We've made up, and we'll probably do if we eventually get around to it because, she's very, very busy with her own career. But if we get around to it, we're going to do a re-release of GLOOMCOOKIE with new stories and new art.
Cool.
And I'm looking forward to that if that.
Well, I'm glad that you guys made up then, because like I said, I've heard things, but at the same time, I'm always of the mindset that people in this industry talk trash,
right?
And I'd rather hear the truth from one or both sides,
Yeah. I mean,
and the thing is, you've got the foresight of growing up and being more mature now than you were back then.
Right. I mean, I was maybe 28 years old, and I had experienced this huge amount of frustration in the business, and then it was the first real success I'd had on my own terms, doing the kind of art that I wanted to do. And but I did, there was a lot, like in my defense, there was a lot of the situation where it was just untenable for me to keep taking 50% of the work and doing 50% of the cut and doing 85% of the physical labor that because it takes I mean, I write now and it takes time, but it doesn't take anything like the amount of time that does to sit there and slave away scribbling on these stupid pages. And so I think also the situation with the publisher, where we were just splitting the initial, we were splitting whatever the initial burst of profits were as they came in, just wasn't really working when you do an advance in the, like when I'm working with Oni and they have an advance before the profits come in.
Right.
They split it according to like, the artist gets, like 75% or 85% of the the advance, because it takes more time, and if they didn't, there would be no art.
Yeah. Well, I think looking back on that, and of course, having worked with Dan a little bit as a talent scout for slave labor at the time,
right.
Part of the reason that was being done was because of how Diamond operated with companies like slave labor. They weren't getting the kind of audience and sales that they should have been getting, and they couldn't offer the same kind of contractual agreements that Oni and Dark Horse were offering at that time.
Right.
Yeah, and it was a few years later when Jennifer Guzman came in, and they started doing a little bit with Disney, that they started getting a little bit better about it. And then, of course, we had the mini bubble break too, right after that, and that kind of put Dan in a bad spot as well.
I remember I talked to him. He had a rough time after he was like, they were ready to close up shop right before the Disney came along, and he kind of ended up regretting doing Disney and getting, like, it was like the shiny lure of a big company suddenly created this false sense that he might actually still get somewhere, and he ended up in a much worse position to retire after that happened than he had been beforehand. Which is a shame. Sometimes it's nice to know when to get out of the business, especially a business like comics that's just so notoriously fickle. But I mean, it was they figured they had their model, and they were trying to make it work. It didn't end up working for me, but it sure as hell wasn't Serena's fault.
No, it wasn't. No.
And to my shame, I must admit that I kind of took some of it out on her, and that was not cool of me.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we know that now, and we all, like you said, you've made up and you've apologized, so we're cool with that. So let's go ahead and move on from Gloom Cookie.
And just for the record, the people who did say that we had a falling out, they weren't wrong.
Yeah. Well, the way they said it was like it was really much nastier, I think, than what it probably was. If you know what I'm saying. I mean, like they were saying like you were excessively abusive of her, and I don't know if that's really true, knowing what I know of your personality. Having met you.
Well, remember, I'm a lot older and a lot more mature. I don't have anything like an objective perspective about it. So if they, maybe I was, and maybe it wasn't cool.
Maybe.
Let's be clear. It's entirely possible that I was a real jerk, more of a jerk than even I remember, and it was not fair or cool or whatever. So yeah, there you go.
Okay. I'm still here. Here.
Picture. So yeah, I wouldn't want to like make excuses when I don't really. I mean, that was 25 years ago. I don't even remember who that kid was anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, well, from Gloom Cookie sprang arguably the most famous work, which is Courtney Crumrin. Right. And that started in 2002 and went to 2013 until you relaunched recently, and we'll get to that. But that was, of course, with Oni Press. It started out as black and white. And then in more recent times, which is what the hardcover editions I'm showing, you've got colors by Warren Wuschenick. Is that pronounced correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Warren's become one of your regular color collaborators and letter collaborators.
Not just color. He is drawing another book of mine, which we can get to later.
Oh, yes, that's true. But this is fantasy genre or dark fantasy. And what I considered it about. Courtney Crumrin is a precocious girl who's brought to a new town by her callow, grasping, negligent parents, where they stay for free in a rich great uncle's mansion while trying to climb the social ladder.
Mm-hmm.
She has no friends and doesn't fit in, but soon discovers that her uncle Aloysius, okay, has some interesting books and more interesting hobbies, and that all kinds of ghoulies and ghastly hang around the mansion and the surrounding town. This leads her to many adventures, starting with meeting a goblin in the woods, meddling with magic to deal with bullies and her social isolation, and rescuing an infant that she's babysitting from the goblin market, and almost being replaced by a doppelganger.
Yeah, but does she rescue the infant?
Well, we really don't want to say. We want people to read the book and find out. Enter the Coven of Mystics, Hillsborough, which is the name of the town, mystical council, who ensure witches and wizards don't abuse their powers. They'll sometimes fall out of their jurisdiction, and when a night creature is blamed for crimes against the community, they'll do anything in their power to see justice done. Only one problem: the creature that they're blaming is innocent, and Courtney has to find out who the real culprit is before the coven takes action. Then she becomes entangled with a group of other students of magic who turn one of their own into a night thing, and she has to try to get everyone out of hot water while evading the law, who suspects that she may have had something to do with the death of a local warlock. And of course, the series progresses through some more thrilling adventures as well. As I said, this is Ted's most popular series, reprinted in multiple formats in multiple publishers. I have the Oni hardcovers, but I did get the original comics. And I did get, the first hardcover of Courtney Crumrin and the Prince of Nowhere in its original format.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see that it is done in glorious black and white. Let me go ahead and put that there so people can see it.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
we'll show a little bit more of this stuff. One of the funny things I was reading the critiques of these, and it was hilarious. She has no nose. That's your complaint?
Did anybody complain? I mean, was that an actual complaint or was it just an observation? I mean,
no. Everybody was like, I don't like this because she has no nose. Why doesn't she have a nose?
Do you think I made a mistake?
No, I don't. I think it works perfectly.
I mean, it does distinguish her, and I'm kind of stuck with the no nose and the pointy fingers thing that all the characters have. I can actually draw hands pretty well, but because I kind of started the Courtney Crumrin series off as like very cartoony, kind of like GLOOMCOOKIE, because I had just come off of GLOOMCOOKIE, and I wanted to do this sort of even more cartoony series with these like little spiky hands and everybody being very kind of primitively drawn. But then, like the more lush the world became in the storytelling, the more lushly I wanted to draw it. So things like her missing a nose and people having 3 or 4 fingers instead of 5 became these weird artifacts of the original intent. And that's just kind of, they end up being now just this odd signature of the book.
Yes.
I mean, with Courtney, originally I was like, well, she'll probably have nose in profile, but then when I drew her in profile with a nose, it just didn't look like her. And when I erased the nose, there she was again. Yeah,
there you go. It just happened to be what it was. And I personally didn't have a problem with it, but it's like some people are just like, they got to find something to complain about. That's what I took from it.
I mean, if they didn't like it, they didn't like it. Sometimes, things just don't grab you, and you look for whatever excuse happens to be hovering there, and that's as good a one as any if it doesn't work for you.
Yeah. Now there are 6 hardcovers, actually 7, but I've got the first 6.
You've got the 6. That's the entire run of the Courtney saga. Number 7 is a spin-off story.
Right. 7 is the story about Uncle Aloysius.
Aloysius.
I'm gonna get that name correct.
You're gonna get it right. You're gonna get it right. Believe in you.
Yeah. But so I got those 6, and like I said, there's you did receive an Eisner nomination for this series.
Yes, a couple of times.
but you didn't win. Or did you win?
The first one was up against Alan Moore for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Mike Mignola for Hellboy. So it wasn't. Let's just say I didn't. I mean,
It was nice to be. It was nice to be mentioned in the same breath as them.
Yeah, I mean, it was also. I think. I mean, just between you and me and the fence post. I think it was because Charles Vest was on the panel. Charles Vest has particular tastes, and my work tickles them. And so he's like, "What about Ted NAIFEH? This thing is good." And it's like, and so I'll always have to thank Charles Vest specifically for my Eisner nominations. And I think there's a couple of other people that also, I also, when I first came out doing like indie work for what was that comics company called? Innovation. My first book was an adaptation of Shadow the Torturer that never got finished because it just didn't sell. And I got nominated for a Russ Manning book, and the people who nominated me, they still work, they're still some of the senior management over at Comic-Con.
Okay.
And just terrific, lovely people. And so I have a few little, people pulling for me back, here and there. So that's nice.
Okay. Well, this is what my thoughts on Courtney were. Pretty much every time I hear that there aren't cool comics for girls to read, this is the series I bring to everybody's attention. Now, there are going to be people, like I said, that are annoyed that Ted didn't give Courtney a nose. There are going to be people that think that Ted doesn't write Courtney's parents particularly well, or they'll complain about Courtney's antisocial behavior a little bit.
Oh dear.
Yeah. There's always something. No book is quote unquote perfect. And like I said, believe me, I've been reading the reviews online, and I've been rolling my eyes at the nitpicking. Because it's just nitpicking to me. But I recommend the book for ages 12 and up. I give it the whole series overall 4 out of 5 stars.
4 out of 5, I call that a win.
Yeah. And, that's the kind of material that I think, I wish more people would carry in comic shops more. Especially these days where everybody's complaining about so-called SJWism and how Marvel and DC are dropping the ball. Well, if they're dropping the ball, then let the ball roll and let's pick up something else. Here you go. That's how I feel about things. But
everybody will always complain when stuff that was directly for them stops being directly for them.
I guess.
It just happens.
Sure. I mean, again, X-Men stopped being for me when Claremont was fired off the X-Men in '91. I gave him a chance for like a year and a half, 2 years to get to Uncanny 300. But when it got to 300, I was doing the Daniel Bryan yes chant. Yes, yes. I'm done. I don't have to read more X-Men. And I found other things to read. That's.
Yeah, that's the risk of that ongoing serialization. And, if you like, you got a dilemma of 3 bad choices, or 2 bad choices, really. You either just keep going and going and going in the same direction and hope that people don't just give up. But the problem with that is if you don't provide a jumping off point, you're not providing a jumping on point, right?
Right.
But the problem, of course, with wrapping up an arc really definitively and then starting a new one, it provides a jumping on point where people can just go, oh, this story is starting again. But it also gives people the opportunity to say, okay, well, I think I'm done with X-Men. I got to an end and I'm happy. So it's a really tricky thing. Personally, that's the way I like it. I feel like stories that just keep kind of going and meandering and never really coming to any kind of conclusion are not really stories in my personal taste. So I kind of get why people got exasperated with Claremont, who just, he just had these dangling plot threads forever. And sometimes you'd pick up a book and it was picking up of a plot thread that, had been left dangling 10 years ago. And you're like, what, like if you jumped on 5 years ago, you have no idea what this is about.
Well, I think part of that happened more so in the latter stages of his run.
Right.
in no small part because, Marvel was forcing him to like, okay, we got to have this spin-off book and that spin-off book, and we got to have crossover events and all this nonsense. Whereas he didn't want that. He was very vocal at the time. He's like, no, just the 2 books. I'll write them. Or, okay, I'll let Louise write New Mutants because I trust her. But no, we got to have X Factor. We got to have, Wolverine with his own spin-off book. We've got to have this book. We got to have that book.
Like this X-Men is popular, so we just have to, X-Men has to clone off and become like all the different things. And like, I mean, because it is a business. I mean, the mainstream comic book world is a business. That part of it is one of the reasons I stay out of it.
Well, that's true, but I think part of it was more so that other creators were jealous of Chris's success and wanted a piece of his pie.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, they absolutely. There's no getting around that.
Whereas I would have said, I don't want a piece of Chris Claremont's pie. I want to take my own property and make my own pie. That's just me. And I was a person who wanted to work with Chris on X-Men back at that time because I was just about breaking in. I got in just after that happened. But it was like, okay, if he's not on the book, well, then what other Marvel characters are there that I can play with that nobody's using that maybe I can make into something? Right. That was always my mentality. Rather than go, I'm going to be on the popular thing, because the popular thing is driven partly by rote habit, like you say, from the readership. And then are you still going to be measurable to what was done before?
Yeah. It's
dark.
I'm going to put a little light on the subject.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll go ahead and take a look here. This is from Courtney Crumrin from 2012. This is the new color series that was done before, because you're like the first, 5 or 6 story arcs we did in black and white. This was the first one that was done in color initially.
Right. Well, I would do these limited series. Like the first volume was 4 issues. And then the second volume was 4 issues, third volume 4 issues. And then the fourth volume was these 2 sort of prestige format books. They came up with that format and that term for the Dark Knight series, but I always liked the format, with the little spine and, it's like more than a comic book, but not exactly a graphic novel. I really liked that, but
that would be that started with the Prince, right? Prince of Nowhere.
Isn't that a little book? I really like the way that looks. I like the size. I like the format. But they were all black and white. And then Oni, for the 10th anniversary, they wanted to re-release the first book and then launch a new series at the same time. And so they kind of called me up and they said, please do this. And I said, they said, do you have any more Courtney books? And I said, yeah, sure. Why the hell not? And lo and the thing about Courtney is like, whether I think I'm inspired or not, like stories just seem to pop out. It doesn't work like that necessarily with everything, but Courtney always seems to like produce, she kind of has her own voice that I just kind of like, I don't struggle to come up with Courtney stories. And they always just kind of seem to flow out. And this story kind of flowed out and then it led to the next one. That's like the first cliffhanger, because all the other miniseries were very standalone. And then this was this final one. This new one was a cliffhanger. I did 5 issues and it ended on this, tight, terrifying, revelation. And then that led into the final graphic novel.
Right.
So I feel like it really just kind of, the format just kind of felt right for it. And people really seem to respond to the color and the way the whole thing came out.
Absolutely. So again, this was like kind of how I ended up getting back into it, was because I gotten some of the black and white stuff, but like I said, my parents both had suffered heart attacks, and I kind of had to get away from comics for a little while because I was finances and other things kind of messed up.
Right.
And, of course, when the hardcovers are back and it's in full color, I'm like, I guess I'm going to get these. That sounds like a cool thing. And that's when I started getting back into this series. And but this is the color work. And again, I showed the black and white a little bit before with the Prince of Nowhere.
Right.
But it's very interesting that this character and the character that you're introducing here, I can't think of her name right now. The one that's with the dark hair and the ponytails.
Her name was Holly.
Holly, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be funny because, in a way, someone asked me this. I'm gonna have to ask when we get to Wish for Hire, because Holly and Faye look kind of alike.
The idea for this was, what would Courtney's Lex Luthor look like? Right? What would her arch nemesis look like? A schoolyard enemy. And I realized she would be exactly like Courtney, like basically the same person.
Yeah.
Like somebody and they would be drawn to each other, and then they would instantly bounce off of each other, and that would be fun and funny, and give them both an opportunity to look at themselves and see, back pertaining to, some sort of difficult conversations we had a little earlier in the interview, letting them see themselves more objectively a little bit, which I thought was a hard but important lesson for a young character to learn.
Both characters to learn.
Both characters to learn. And that became what that book was about, was kind of the hard work of seeing yourself objectively, and instead of projecting all of your worst traits onto somebody else and assuming that they're the bad guy. You know?
Yeah, and see that this is the kind of comic book that you tend to write a lot of stuff that appeals and is, I won't call it life lessons, but about growing up and about maturing.
Right.
And it's not that we don't see other people doing it, but it's not a common theme present in comics.
Mm-hmm.
And when people say, well, there's no books for girls or there's no book for kids, well, yeah, there are. Here it is. And then the parents are all like, but what is this?
Right.
What? It's not people punching people in the face while wearing spandex?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think some of the greatest stories ever told have involved people wearing spandex and punching each other in the face. I found that, I'm a big fan of the Justice League animated series. Right? Are you familiar with that?
Sure.
And it is this epic series of stories that just go, really run the gamut of expressing a lot about human experience, all through the medium of people punching each other in the face. And it's kind of amazing how that, that slightly limited form of expression can end up expressing so much.
Certainly. But here's the funny part. Go look at who wrote those. And the funny part is that they might write the animated series comics. They might write just animated comic, or they might write Batman, The Adventures Continue, but they're not writing the regular books.
Right.
And, and I hear all these fans who complain about what's wrong with comics today. I'm like, well, that's what's wrong. You haven't got those writers writing the regular comics. That's why I tell them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some of those people, I know Dwayne McDuffie surely wrote comics.
No, Dwayne was one who did both. Yes.
Yeah,
but
he did both.
Dwayne's no longer with us.
Paul Dini has, he did. God rest his soul. And I know Paul Dini, who's one of my favorite, people in the biz. He has such a wonderful ability to just take a big idea and condense it down to such a simple expression. And I feel like that's one of the things I like about comics, is that there's a weird haiku quality to it. And so he's really good at that. It's here's this one simple story that you can sit there and discuss it for hours, what all the nuances that he's exploring with it. And he's written comics too, and some of them are better, and some of them are not so good. But it's just the nature of the biz. Where comics, that's kind of one of the the best and worst things about comics is it allows us to take an idea and throw it against the wall and see if it sticks, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay, our next book is The Gun Witch, Outskirts of Doom.
Yay!
Now, this is a book that Ted drew in collaboration with the creator of the Nocturnals, Dan Brereton. This is a spinoff of the Nocturnals. The Gun Witch is one of the characters from the Nocturnals, and he is a zombie revenant who is basically the bodyguard of Doc Horror's daughter, Eve. And in this book, they find themselves in a town called Heliopolis, and there are 2 crime bosses in town, and it's not big enough for both of them. When Lady Goodnight, the undead temptress, and Fang, the vampire biker lord, take their midnight dispute to the streets, it means trouble for everyone, especially the living. And it's up to the Gun Witch to play one side against the other to keep the innocent from being casualties in the wake of a bloody vampire feud. But when he discovers that there's a child at the center of the bloodstorm, saving this child becomes his first priority. Going back over this, I found I only had issues 1 and 3. I don't know how I didn't get number 2, but this was during that period where I lived in the middle of nowhere and there was no comic shop, and my parents were sick, so somehow I must have missed it. So I can't give it a complete review grade because I don't have the whole story. But what I did enjoy, what I do have, I enjoyed. Now the trick is to get the missing issue. As Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap says, oh boy. But one thing I'd forgotten about this was a black and white book.
Yeah.
I'm so used to seeing Nocturnals fully painted by Dan that seeing it in black and white line art was a very stark contrast.
Right.
I also did read. I do have Nocturnals Trollbridge, which you have a story in as well.
Right.
I gave that one a 3.5 star out of 5. Okay. So, but let's take a quick look at the artwork there. This is his line art from there, and you can see quite a different. More dynamic look than what you did with GLOOMCOOKIE and Courtney in some respects.
Yeah, I mean, it's still cartoony because that's kind of how I roll. Right. Like when I'm drawing a city, I'm not going for, photorealism or something like that. You can see at the bottom there with the cityscape. It's like it's kind of a cartoon city. And the characters are all kind of right, like in that weird balance between cartoon and realism that like I always end up with. Yeah. But yeah,
I see a little Mignola in here, and I see a lot of Michael Golden's style in this.
I never really looked at Michael Golden. This is a a terrible secret that I'm just going to confess to you though. I have looked at Mike Mignola's work, and I have borrowed some of his tools. I know, surprise, surprise.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, the way you do certain block shading, the way you do certain figure placement and layout structure is very similar to Mike's.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much a given, so to speak. But like the faces of the two, and I love the layout of these 2 pages, by the way. It's just so lovely balance here with the female vampire's face over here on the left. Direct opposite, you got the vampire biker lord face. It's just a nice balance. I can just in those faces, I really see a lot of Mike Golden.
I never really looked at his work. I think it's just coincidence.
Yeah, but that's cool though. I mean,
yeah, I now have to check him out.
Yeah. And then again, here's another page of the artwork, and I love this. Give it up, F, for Fang. I really did enjoy this from what I got to read of it. Now this is from book 3, and the head monster, shall we say, the one that there really is the leader. Since the Gun Witch got the girl that was supposed to be sacrificed to their person, one of her warrior party here. This is not the one. Forgive me, my queen. The girl I had prepared for you was taken from us. Not pure, not innocent, but very strong, very strong. And of course, feeds on this this warrior. I'm like, see, you don't need the virgin vintage at all. You just need to have a powerful woman.
That you really, I mean, there's so much going on with the the vampire mythos that deserves unpacking.
Yeah.
Like, what does all this really mean? What are we really getting at here? Like, what is the value added in virginity that vampires find so important? And of course, if you ask some vampires, they'll just explain, like, for example, in What We Do in the Shadows, you've seen this movie. There was one vampire that was explaining, if you are, for example, say you're eating a sandwich, wouldn't you enjoy it more if you knew no one had had sex with it?
Yeah.
No?
But yeah, it's kind of
sorry.
It's funny, I mean, it's a funny line, I admit. Mark Andrew Smith says he loves.
Yeah, of course, it's a ridiculous. I mean, the point of the line was that it's a ridiculous notion.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was poking fun at the whole thing, which is, of course, that you drew attention to that in the book. That it was kind of what what it's doing is poking holes in, kind of reinventing and re-examining a lot of those mythos,
exactly.
And kind of asking, like, what Dan does is he likes fun pulp,
yes,
that's his shtick. But even in that, you can call into question all these tropes and have a lot of fun with that. And kind of point out
by doing that, you make it a more original. You're not.
Well, yeah, you zig where everybody expects you to zag.
Yeah. And Mark is talking about What They Do in the Shadows. Season 3 is great on Hulu.
Right.
Yeah,
I haven't started it yet.
But I'm a big fan of the Nocturnals. The next thing that I remembered you doing was Princess Ugg. Also, you've been pretty much with Oni Press ever since you left with Courtney. Pretty consistent.
I've been really happy with them. They have been good friends. They have been good supporters. They, we have always, we've always been happy to work with one another. And, and Princess Ugg, I mean, we did pretty well. And we were, it all came together.
Okay, this is from Oni Press, and of course, you wrote and illustrated this. And colors and letters were done by Warren Wusnick. When did you meet Warren, by the way?
Well, he was assigned to. He wasn't assigned to Courtney Crumrin. When it came time to produce the new series and incidentally recolor Volume 1, like go back and do a color version of Volume 1. They gave me a couple of alternatives, and he was the one that did the colors that I found the most intriguing and unexpected.
Okay.
I mean, there was for example, there was a colorist that did a really good workman-like job of making everything just feel like this is this is standard TED colors, and here they, and here's what you would expect to see. But I felt like Warren was kind of trying things and experimenting. And I really, so both colorists were good. Warren was the one that was kind of going weird with it, and I was there for it.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
So, and then he just, as he continued to do the series, it's just that his choices were always lovely and always interesting and thoughtful. And then I'm like, well, should I have him color? Because I was originally going to watercolor the entirety of Princess Ugg, but that would have just taken too long.
Mm-hmm.
So Warren came in, he did a couple of page samples, and I just loved what he did. He had this wonderful kind of romantic, sweet quality. It was so warm. And, he would say that, like, warming up Olga's face with morning light was always like a delight for him. And I really loved the results.
H. Pockley says, morning in Asia.
Morning.
Okay. Princess Ugg is within the fairy tale kingdom of Atracia. Lies a prestigious princess academy where young royals from all the 5 kingdoms come to get their education, but they've never before seen the like of Princess Uga, yeah, that's right, from Grimoria. Armed with an axe and sword, riding her war mammoth through the city gates, Uga has come in search of schooling, but this barbarian princess might just end up schooling the people of Atracia before that even happens. This was an 8-issue series, correct?
Yeah, collected in 2 trades, yes.
Yes, that's okay.
I had originally wanted like a leather-bound single volume, but that has not appeared yet.
Okay.
Maybe someday.
Now, the funny thing about this book, and I'll get to this in a little bit, but let's talk about it thematically first. The story is about the pressures of societal expectations placed upon us from both external and internal sources. The other princesses mock Olga for her attire, her seemingly lack of manners, her entire upbringing as a barbarian princess. And then when she has to stand up to defend everyone, they have to put their own egos aside and defer to her superior knowledge and learn how to protect themselves, both from the enemy and from her. But Olga's journey is also that of self-discovery, which is a common theme amongst all of your female protagonists, as we see in Courtney Crumrin, and again in the new series we're going to talk about in a little bit, Witch for Hire. I thought the art here was a different divergence in style from what we had seen from you in earlier books.
Yeah.
But it was also a side of you growing and evolving as an artist.
Right. I mean, I was...
Yeah, I like the color work by Wisnik. Again, used watercolor, a very watercolor brush technique. I didn't know if he was doing this in watercolor or digital. It looks digital or watercolored and then digitally enhanced.
No, it's all digital. He just has a lovely touch that like evoked watercolor. Okay. He was also looking at some of my painted sample pages, because in each book I had a little flashback sequence, and those flashback sequences were watercolor. Okay. And they were my watercolor.
Right. That was kind of the thing. I was going, the saturation of these colors is just a little bit too even for traditional watercolor. So I thought either he watercolored them with the P.H. Martins and then touched them up in the Photoshop, or he did it all in Photoshop. I couldn't tell which. But
no, we would.
Go ahead.
We did a little game where, like I said, each page that had a little flashback moment or a little dream sequence, I would watercolor that, and I had a wonderful time with that.
Okay. So ages 12 and up, 4 out of 5 stars for the series overall.
Fine.
And here's some of the early pages.
Oh yeah, that's all Warren.
Yeah.
Gorgeous work. I mean, that was really fun. That was like the first sequence I had in mind, was to do this scene with a contrast between, the traditional fairy tale princess, getting to decide which dresses to bring to finishing school, and then Olga trying to decide which axe to bring.
Right. And then, of course, she gets there, and she sees this new city, and she's on her war mammoth, and everybody's like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
But I like this, her language. It's kind of the accent of the Irish or Norwegian type thing, but it's also kind of Southern.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I could actually see someone with a Southern accent reading this. It sounds cool.
I'm American. Like all my Irish comes from like listening to books on tape while I'm working. You know, like all the, these like sort of Irish brogues that you hear in movies and whatnot. That's where that all comes from. It's not like I grew up in that world. So like if I'm gonna do like for fun, for humor, if I'm gonna do a phonetically spelt out accent in comic book balloons for fun. It's not going to be particularly accurate to any one region. It's going to be a mess. But that's that's kind of the freedom that you get from making up fantasy worlds, is that it doesn't have to be accurate. Like this is like half the barbarians of Grimmeria are half Viking and half Irish.
Right.
And that was inspired because I had just been to Iceland, and Iceland, the culture and that whole world stemmed from, a mix of Viking and Irish people.
Mm-hmm.
So fun
Yeah,
fact.
I just think this is hilarious. I mean, it's so crazy that, the guy whips her from behind in the back of the head. I mean,
Right.
That's a really nasty action to take. I mean, doing that to a person without the helmet would literally be,
Right.
Like,
well, in the real world, you could kill somebody with a whip like that. Of course, this is of course not the real world. It's
but it also depicts a point of how they perceive her. That she's less than human. Just whip her like a dog or whatever, like a beast, And I think it's just crazy that they do that. But it's interesting that they play that because of course now she turns around and throws the axe and cuts the whip, and now everybody's charging, and Jesus like, really? Okay.
Yeah. If it's on, right? But
it's on now.
Of course,
and
now
it's, I just think it's great. I mean, she's like, "Oh my God, get me out of here!" And then, oops, and then she goes right into it. It's like, that's just precious.
Well, there was a mammoth in the area, so
yeah,
they didn't see it coming, but
yeah, but I think it's hilarious because
mammoths make a big mess.
Oh yeah, but I think it's hilarious because okay, here she is in that. Okay, well, this is an affront. This is going to, we're going to have war over this. And she and I know that Ulga's like, really? I'm like 12, and I just took out like 20 of your guards by myself. Well, what's your army going to do?
They're not 12, but 16 is war age, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a Viking culture, that's like.
Well, she's so short compared to the others. I was thinking she was like 12 or 13.
No, she's just stocky.
Okay, just short and stocky. Okay. Well, even 16. I
really thought it through, I would have had a whole thing, and if I ever go back to do Princess Ugg Part 2, I'll have a whole thing where her father is just like, her mother would tower over her father, where she gets her height from her father. That he would have been this just like 5'3" mighty barbarian, like just this short but mighty mound of muscle,
Yeah, cool. But I mean, this is I really do enjoy this one though, because it's so again, you're sitting here with characters who have to evolve and learn about each other as well as learning about themselves.
Right.
And you continually return to this theme with each work you do, but you do it in different genre and different expressions.
Right.
Whereas a lot of people who get stuck on a thematic, well, I won't say stuck, but they go back to the same theme. They're going through the exact same tropes over and over and over.
Yeah, and in exactly the same way.
Yeah. Whereas your stuff, it's like it's different. These characters are their own unique reactions and their own unique perspectives, and that makes it more fun to me to read.
Oh, thank you. It's nice of you to say.
So that pretty much covers the overview portion of Ted's career. We're going to talk about his most recent work now. Oh, actually, we do have one more thing. I don't know where we missed it somehow. Let me see if I can find it. We didn't talk about KRISS. Where is KRISS?
Oh, KRISS, the book. Yeah.
I forgot about KRISS. There we go.
Here we go.
KRISS is $14.99, again from Oni. You just wrote this one, correct?
I wrote it, and Warren Wasinich illustrated it.
Right.
Completely.
Okay.
So, but the guy who was coloring the Courtney books and the Princess Ugg.
Right.
We just got to talk about what we could. He wanted to illustrate a book that I had written. He wanted to just do the full art chores, and I'm like, hell yeah, that sounds great. So what do we got? And I had this idea for this story, and that's where it started. So we'll dive right in.
Came out in September 2019. Fantasy. Lean, ghostly pale, and permanently grim-faced, KRISS has always been an outsider in his small village. Not even his adopted parents love him. Only Anya, the blacksmith's daughter, brings any kind of kindness and friendship into the life of the sullen teenager. But KRISS is haunted by dim memories of his true father, Eric Irontooth, the king of Darkovia. When Anya's mother is killed by a wild saber cat from the far north, the young girl's world is shattered, and KRISS determines to avenge her. Armed with only a pitchfork, the skinny teen sets out to kill the beast, only to learn that it's actually a dark spirit from Darkovia that has come to bring him his destiny. This spirit animal grants KRISS the power to vanquish the mightiest of foes and commands him to reclaim his father's kingdom. However, this gift of power comes with a price, an uncontrollable rage, and leaving the village that he grew up in would mean leaving Anya, the only person who's always been there for him. So he must choose between his destiny and Anya, who needs his friendship more than ever. But his growing power and the fiery anger that comes with it threatens to make the choice for him and burn everything he holds dear. Thematically, I think the story challenges, again, the societal expectations of men in this particular version instead of women, and the constructs that can play into toxic masculinity. So all you manly men out there might get offended, to which I say, you see that pitchfork that KRISS is holding on the cover? He'll take that pitchfork, turn it sideways, and shove it straight up your candy ass. It's also about learning not only about a teen going through their phase into adulthood or into their power, shall we say, but he's going through a maturity process that most men don't actually see through until they're in their late 20s or early 30s, because he has to choose not so much a destiny over which he cares about, but also the self-actualization that he controls the power and it doesn't control him. He controls the rage, not the other way around. Right. Many males in the real world who suffer from toxic masculinity never reach that level of self-actualization or self-realization, and moreover, they don't want to. So some people would say, well, this is an SJW book. No, it's not an SJW book, whatever the hell that actually means, but you know the phrase, folks. What it does mean is that it takes the tropes that are expected of this kind of story and turns them askew and challenges you to look at it from a different perspective, as the character does himself. This makes the story more unique, and many reviewers didn't pick up on this nuance as I was reading reviews, what other people thought of the book. And so I think the book was very underrated from other reviewers. I gave it 4 out of 5. A lot of people thought that Warren's art was too cartoony, and I'm like, whatever. But, is it any more cartoony than your art? No. It's very similar nature. So it's like, it's Ted NAIFEH. You get what you get. At first, I didn't realize it was Warren's art.
Oh yeah, you thought I just was trying a new style.
Yeah, I thought it was Warren just doing colors and letters again. But then when you told me, no, Warren drew that, I'm like, oh, let me go back. Oh, yeah, he did. Okay. But this is recommended for ages 13 and up. and it's the right. I think that's the perfect age for it, because 13-year-old self, you're starting to get into your puberty range, and you're starting to get into that whole mentality. You're in junior high, high school. You're in gym class. You got the coach pressuring you to be a man. You've got the what are you going to do?
It's the whole
gym class, everything. It's like what are you going to do when you grow up? I'm 13. Give me a break. But I can remember that
for a little bit longer. I mean,
yeah. Well, no, I can remember that. I mean, I was one of those guys that they just didn't know what to do with, because, okay, he's uber jock. He has all the athletic records, but he won't play on the sports teams.
Oh yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
Because I didn't want to play football. I was too small for football. I was like 5 foot tall and 120 pounds in junior high and early high school. What am I going to be playing football for? I mean, are you nuts?
But you had athletic prowess?
Oh yeah, I had 43 school records.
Oh wow, doing what?
Just you remember you had to do all the gym class tests for the Presidential Physical Fitness Awards?
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So you were physically gifted.
Yeah. And they wanted me to like run cross country. I'm like, that's boring. No, thank you. I'm not going to run 5 miles every week or every day or whatever. What's the point of that? It was just like, what will you play? Type thing. Now junior high wasn't too bad because there was sports I would play. We had, men's softball, which was because they didn't want to play baseball for whatever reason. But so I did men's softball. I did run track. There was a floor hockey league that I played floor hockey on, so there was stuff I did, but once I got to high school, it was like, nah, I don't want to deal with this, and then on top of that, go ahead.
What put you off?
Just the mentality of the other kids and the mentality of the coaches, mostly, right. I think. Yeah. I would play summer league. I would play summer league baseball, and stuff like that.
I think for some it's a nurturing environment, and it occasionally can be. But like I feel like there's, if you have any kind of sensitivity, if you're a sensitive kid and you don't like your feelings being hurt a lot, it's not really it's not a good environment for you, because it's just there's so much focus on toughening up.
Yeah, and, this is the funny part. They demanded I played football, so I'm like, okay, I'm 5'3", I weigh 140 pounds.
Right.
I get medically cleared to play football by my doctor, but in the clearance there is specific instructions. I am not to play the line, offensive or defensive line. 4th day of practice, he wants me to play nose tackle which is the center of the defensive line.
Right.
And I'm getting destroyed. Of course, I'm just too small for this position.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Coach, my doctor told you not to put me here. He goes, well, if you want to be on this team, you'll do what you're told, type attitude. And I'm like, okay. So I told the center, let me through. He goes, what? Let me through. You'll kill the quarterback. I said, trust me, if I hit the quarterback, I'll let you all just kick my ass. So he lets me through the line, and I charge the quarterback. He's going, oh, no. I had my arm up like I'm going to clothesline the quarterback. Slam my arm down, raise my other one, and clothesline the coach.
Oh, nice.
And, of course, I got in trouble for this. My parents come in, the principal's there, the superintendent of the schools are there, and I'm like, look, here's what he did. Here's what's going on. I had every right to do what I did. Either you fire his ass or we sue the school. And that was the end of me playing sports for them at that school, because that's what happened.
Right.
And it's like, hey, I'm sorry, And of course he was fired because, he broke clear medical protocol, But that's the kind of thing that was it wasn't worth it to me.
Right.
In that regard.
But I'm sure he thought he was doing the right thing, and it didn't even occur to him that people should question him, let alone fire him for doing something as, unimportant as, violating medical advice.
Yeah. So,
like, who cares? What's important is winning.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but how you're not going to win with a 5'3", 140-pound nose tackle either. The thing is, he just didn't want me on a team because he knew I didn't really want to play what he wanted me to do, type thing. Right. Whereas, I was like, okay, whatever. What he wanted was he wanted me to go run cross country, basically. And that was the whole thing. And that was what the whole crux of the thing was. And I wasn't going to do it.
Right. Not all that engaging.
Yeah. So I didn't need it. So, but I had that, but then I graduated from high school 2.5 years early. So that tells you how I was intellectually as well.
But then that pushes you into a group of people that are like, just in different places in their lives than you are, just because they're 2 years older. I mean, that makes a huge difference when you're a teenager.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even get along with anybody. All my friends were like 10 years older than me.
I mean, you were one of those. Yeah. I didn't, you were lucky to have 10 years older people. I didn't have even that. I guess I did end up, by high school, I ended up with friends, but like junior high was.
Well, the main thing I had that was because of role-playing games. And,
right.
And we had a military base nearby. So my father was retired military. So I got to go on base and meet the gamers there. And so, of course, they're all adults because they're military.
Right.
And, so it was just like, oh, this is just the little brother. We brought him into play, and that's how I kind of got that. But, it was like, okay, that's cool. That was like my clique group, whereas I didn't get along with anybody in my own class. And they would just do, they was like, well, I'm like, no, I don't. Here I am at, a sophomore in college. I'm working at the local newspaper as a reporter. I'm doing things that, these people are just,
you didn't relate to kids your own age. I mean, you weren't in the same emotional place. And I mean, here we are, like we're our own little subgroup, like the weirdos, the comic book nerds, the people who like other worlds. I kind of feel like for me that's the commonality that I latch onto, is that what I relate to is people who like to be transported.
Yeah.
And there's something about
that was the thing. I was a writer, and I wasn't into art side at high school because they wouldn't let me take art class.
Why not?
Because my first high school, if you took college preparatory, you couldn't take art until your sophomore year. I transferred schools because I moved from Illinois to Michigan. If you didn't take art in your freshman year, you couldn't take art class, even though you moved, you were a transfer student. And I was like, and they didn't just do this to me. They did this to all the military kids that were coming in who hadn't taken art class.
Yeah. Sounds like you're just trying to get rid of art class.
Yeah, it's like it's art class.
I think at this point, I'm pretty sure they have.
It's like it's like what is this? But no, they just wouldn't give it to me, and that's part of the reason why I graduated 2.5 years early, was because they were doing this kind of nonsense.
Like, I'm out. Yeah, we're out. Yeah. We're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually graduated early too.
And so I didn't even start really doing artwork until I was in college. And I was, because I was a writer that wanted to learn. And I was like, okay, fine. I can't afford to hire artists to draw for me, so I'm going to have to learn how to do this. So I'm going to do comics.
But boy, I mean, art is one of those things. Like like you have, like, it demands a lot. And it's one of those things where, like, there's just so many hurdles to get through, to really get to, like, I mean, with remember Brian Hibbs, who's a local comic book shop. My local comic book shop is Comics Experience, and Brian Hibbs, and he used to say that, because he knows comics like the back of his hand, he knows the whole business. And he used to say that in the comics industry, even if you think you're ready to start drawing comics for a living, you have like 150 bad pages to draw before you're going to draw any good ones. Mm-hmm. And even then you get good, and then you get fast, and then you get good and fast. But like
Maybe.
when you if you're lucky, if you keep going, if you just keep,
if you're lucky, you get good and fast. A lot of people don't get good and fast.
Yeah, I mean,
it depends on your style, though, too.
Got good and fast. He's good, but he'll never be fast. He'll never. Yeah. He gets slower and slower. Yeah, because he just wants more detail.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
Yeah, but Adams, he gets to be as slow as he wants.
Yeah, that's
and Travis Charest was another one who he was doing am I pronouncing his name wrong?
It's Charest.
Travis Charest, thank you. He started off doing a monthly book, and then it got slower and slower, and then he would do maybe half the book and some other artist was doing the other half, and then he'd do a book a year, and then you
gotta remember, Travis started out as a Jim Lee clone.
Yeah, I remember his earliest stuff. It's the worst. It's just awful.
And that's what he was doing early on. And when he started evolving into what he became, then he got slower. Yeah, because it was really developing his look rather than emulating a base. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a truth of a lot of artists in the last 30, 35 years. They'll glom on one artist or two artists that they like and then try to get a base look. Right. And that works within certain confines with certain editorial expectations. Here we go with external expectations versus internal expectations again.
Right.
But if you really want to step up and distance yourself and then make yourself stand out on the market, you have to evolve past that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that the ones that do really do that, they tend to get a little bit slower in what their production work is. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's more about wanting to just do it. I don't want to call it right, but just, what feels right for them.
Their own way. They want to do when they find their own voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's,
you say the last 35 years, but look at Bill Sienkiewicz's earliest work. Or Barry Smith's earliest work. Barry Smith they were both borrowing. Barry Smith was borrowing from Neil Adams, and I think Bill Sienkiewicz was borrowing from Neil Adams.
Yeah, they were.
They were both just Neil Adams clones, and then they kind of went in different directions.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Barry Smith.
I guess what I mean by that is, there was certainly people that came in the late '60s, early '70s, or throughout the '70s that were Neil Adams guys.
Right.
Certainly Neil Adams and Mike Kaluta and a couple of other guys in there as well.
Oh yeah, Kaluta for the pre-Raphaelites too.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is in the late '80s, early '90s, we had that explosion of because Image created those studios where they hired all the guys that were told to draw in the style of Jim Lee, in the style of Rob Liefeld,
and some of them were really good. But
and some of them got to be better than they've evolved. And there's something better than what they started out as, and better than the guy that they were emulating. Right. But a lot of them did too. That was the thing.
Greg Capullo, I remember, was one of them. He was he was doing he was doing Todd McFarlane, but he was doing McFarlane better than McFarlane was doing McFarlane. But
Yeah, well, the funny part is Capullo started out actually crossing Jim Lee with John Romita Jr.
Oh, is that what he was doing? Okay. Well,
back when he was, because you got to remember he did Quasar and X-Force before he went to Image.
Yeah, I don't remember any of that stuff.
Okay.
But I think we're digressing. It's fun, but I think we're digressing. What else do we need to do? We have. We got to get
to the main book. We got to get to your main book, Witch for Hire.
Oh yeah, thing. Oh yes. So,
Witch for Hire, $12.99. Amulet Books, also known, which is a division of Abrams Books. This is all yours, all TED all the time. I call it a teen drama supernatural rather than a fantasy comparative to Courtney. It's more, even though there's supernatural elements, I think it's more rooted in reality than Courtney is. It was released August 24th, so we're talking what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago at the most.
Yeah.
And it's hot on off the presses, kids. What it's about: when a series of high school pranks get out of hand, team which Faye Faulkner is the only one who can solve the case in this spooky young adults graphic novel. Faye Faulkner isn't popular, and that's just fine by her. Sounds kind of like Courtney. She spends her lunches at the loser table with other social rejects, aka her best friends, and brushes off the uninspired taunts from the so-called cool kids. But when lonely freshman Cody finds a way to Faye's corner of the cafeteria, it sets off a peculiar chain of events. To Cody's surprise, these kids aren't so bad. An overdramatic theater nerd, a handy-capable girl in a wheelchair, an overweight boy, and Faye, who just comes to school every day dressed like a witch. But it's not a costume. Faye really is a witch, or at least a young witch in training after her mentor had passed away. While high school can be hell for many reasons, this year the ante has been raised, and the series of pranks swiftly go from mischievous to downright dangerous. From the lowliest debate team nerds to the prom queen, no one is safe, not even the teachers. When things start to really get out of hand, though, Cody owns up to Faye. In a moment of desperation, she signed up for an online challenge that promises to grant popularity to those who follow the website's twisted demands. Something isn't quite right about this online site, and not just because of their demented bullying. No, there is something supernatural evil afoot, and Faye can tell. And she might be the only one who can. So Faye is now faced with a choice: reveal her witchy nature to Cody and help her, or stand aside and keep her secret identity safe. Despite her misgivings, Faye takes on the case, but will her powers be strong enough to solve this mystery, and will people ever stop asking her if she puts newt eyes in her homemade baked goods? Which brings us right back to Gloom Cookie.
Right. I didn't want to say anything.
Circle. It's a wonderful gothic whodunit about resilience, magic, and the power of friendship.
So I didn't write that particular outline. Like I think did you add to it?
No, I wrote that.
You wrote all of that? Because I know I've recognized some of it from the official.
Okay, yes, some of it's official. I added stuff in opinions.
But you filled it out and enriched it.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you like that?
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
All right. All right. Yeah. But
wait a minute. Yeah. Does that give away the store? Oh no. But no,
not really. No.
Not.
Again, this is what I wrote. I actually wrote and reviewed this when this first came out back in the week it came out. August 4th.
Oh, yes, I did read this. Holy
yes.
cats! I remember you. Yes, I did read this. Thank you so much. So you really like this, huh?
Yes. Again, we've gone through pretty much everything I've followed. The only thing I haven't seen from Dan is Polly and the Pirates and Unearthed or Unearthly.
Unearthly, yeah, that was the little manga thing. I started, but never got a chance to finish that. That was going to be three volumes, but it only managed to be one.
Okay, but anyway, since I've known all this, like I said back then, a couple weeks ago, I said I've come to trust that you were going to deliver. And holy cats, did you ever deliver on this? Is where I looked at it.
Yeah,
I'm sure that I think that people who've gotten used to your Crumrin work might think this is more of the same. It isn't. Faye is her own character, and it doesn't even really feel as the same world as Courtney Crumrin's to me. Like I said, it's more grounded in reality than Courtney's is. But at the same time, I could see these two running into each other.
Oh, yeah.
And having quite the experience. Courtney is something of a troublemaker in her own right. She's excessively curious, and she always seems to put herself in harm's way more often than not. And kind of because she's got an attitude about her, like, I can handle it.
Mhm.
Faye is a little bit different. She's acutely aware of the supernatural dangers in the world, and she's a firsthand witness of the horrible behavior of humanity alike because of how they mistreated her mentor. And so she tries to stay away from confrontation.
Right.
She tries to avoid, whereas Courtney's like, really? I'll get in your face. I don't care. Because of that, they're two totally different characters, and people need to see that nuance. Whoops, is there something missing here? There might be. Let me check real quick here. Nope, it isn't. Okay. This is one of your strongest works yet, though. And I do think this will make your top 5, my top 5 at the end of the year. In my year review. I do. That's how strong this is.
Oh, I feel, thank you.
That is a 5-star.
Very nice to say.
That is a very,
because I mean, this book, like, I put everything I have into it, and you never know. You put everything you got into something, and then you put it out into the world, and people are like, yeah, 2 out of 5, boring.
well, again, there are a lot of. I looked at some of the reviews for this, and I could see, it's the same thing he's done. No, it's not the same. Yes, I see where you're getting the idea that it's like Courtney, because it is a similar trope, but it's executed different. Story.
It's not, it's not entirely dissimilar. Like, and I ended up, when I went back to Courtney and did a new Courtney book, I started having to, like, I was thinking, she's been a witch, a sorcerer, all these. I'm going to stick with the word sorcerer for Courtney just to keep the differentiation. But what I really inspired me about Witch for Hire, that really made me want to do it and not just make it another Courtney story, is because I could have made Courtney, I could have relaunched, because I relaunched Courtney at the same time. I did a new Courtney series, and I could have made Courtney the Witch for Hire. But I realized, one, Courtney doesn't want to work for anybody. She doesn't like people, right?
Right.
But two, like, there's something about the thing that really hit home about this is I wanted a witch sitting behind a desk with a witch's hat sitting on, on a hat rack by the door,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wanted Sam Spade, but a teen witch. That was the image I wanted. And so, like, at the end where she has a business card that says Witch for Hire on it, spoilers,
yeah,
there's a little witch hat in the picture. And that's, that was a really kind of important, iconic thing that I really wanted. I wanted the witch hat to be an iconic part of this character, where with Courtney, I just avoided those kinds of icons and kept it. So, there you go. Like, Courtney was about kind of like taking witch tropes and putting them on a completely different kind of character, like kind of witchy tropes. But this was about the label of witch and what it means to people. And so, and it was really important. It was really when I came upon the idea that Faye Faulkner wears her witch's hat the way a punk rocker wears a mohawk.
Okay.
Like, this is my symbol of my nonconformity. I don't play your little game. This is me. I play my game. And that became the opening kind of premise for her. And then that became the sort of like the strength, the source of her power, and the source of her, like a living for her. Like, so that witch hat and like what it represents to her. I'm a professional outsider.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that, like, it took me forever to realize, but like, I think all of these, tween girl characters that I've written are all basically me.
Yeah, like, Courtney is not the kind who will help. More like she will burn down everything in her path. Yeah, and that's true. Courtney is the one that will burn down everything in her path.
Thank you, H. Puck.
Whereas, and the thing is, Faye has that same dissidence, that same anti-socialness about her, but because she was raised and trained and saw how her mentor took that same mistreatment or torture and still gave back to the world and still helped the world. I think that's what makes Faye shift away from the same path as Courtney more than anything else. And
Faye's slightly different personality. I'm sorry, you had more to say. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I think they're also different personalities. Courtney she's grumpy, but there's beneath her grumpiness there's a lot of heartbreak, and Courtney can be wrathful. When she like her kind of the core of Courtney is that she grew up with no one defending her. Like her mother and father were really not there for her. They were telling her to be somebody, to be somebody she wasn't, instead of like taking care of her as a person. And so she grew up having to defend herself. And so her basic dynamic is when she feels like she needs to defend herself, that's when stuff gets burned to the ground. Like it gets ugly.
Courtney's like a caged animal. Courtney's like a caged animal that's been mistreated. Yeah, and even when you are a friend and you're trying to help her, or you're trying to, let her know it's okay, you're in safe hands, or you're with people that you can trust. She's always expecting the open hand to turn to a fist, right, or a slap, and when it does, she's not only prepared for it, but it like gives her a sense of self-justification for her own way of life.
But it also like her response is often quite disproportionate.
Yes, it is.
That's
Faye has her mom, who is there for her. There's a lovely scene in there with her and her mom that I thought I was like, oh yeah, there's the difference. But there's also just an interesting dynamic here, because there's a little more, the enemy, shall we say, in this isn't.
Oh yeah.
It's more reality based than it is Courtney is very much in the realm of the shadows, in the realm of the Fae, in the realm of monsters that she's dealing with. This is Faye's dealing with. I don't want to spoil it, but you can give away read this book. You'll know who the bad guys are, and that this is gonna, when this story comes to an end. This is you're going to see dynamics changing with the next book, assuming that there will be a next book.
The next book is written. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get published. We'll see.
Yeah,
but
let's hope so. I think it should be. I certainly think it should be.
I already done pages for it. It's like that. I'm deeply invested in Witch for Hire, and I God, fingers crossed that it gets somewhere.
Yeah.
Please order the book.
Yes.
You can order directly from Abrams if you want.
Yeah, you can order on Abrams. You can, if Diamond's did pretty well. They got it in for me on the week, and then my retailer got another 2 copies last week. So. Oh.
So it is moving. It's just
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if it can.
Yeah, well, people are like, well, it was funny because my retailer called me and he goes, I got 2 more copies of Witch for Hire. Did you get yours? I'm like, yeah, I got it last week. Oh, okay. Well, I got to figure out who ordered this. I'm like, no, you don't. This is how you promote it. And he goes, okay. And put it up on the front by the counter, where you cash out. It's like, take the stuff that you've got there it's like, take away the Funko Pops.
help brother out, like the Funko Pops.
Well, the funny thing is he does have other people that are local artists. He has their books right there by the cash register to promote them. And I'm like, no, this is something you promote. especially if you got anytime you see a dad with a little girl, try to get him on this. And he goes, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's the same thing. Yeah. And he's like, "Okay." So I think he sold out the 2, and I think he actually has 3 more on the order. So
okay, fantastic. So it's trickling out.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that
when you think about it, I mean, he's just a small store. It's not like he's,
Yeah, but that's comic book shops. They're all small stores. I mean, that's like,
most of them,
the world that I run in. Like I come from the comic book shop world, not the big, book chain world.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tough. It's been tough to get comic book shops to look at the kind of work that I do because they're so used to superheroes. They're so used to the big 2, and
it's not that they're used to it. It's that they're fans of that themselves, and
right.
They are trained by Diamond to say, okay, that book that Ted's doing, or that book that Lewis is doing, or that book that Mark Andrew Smith is doing, even though he's doing superhero with Gladstone School of World Conquerors, he's actually doing super villains as teenagers, but that's beside the point. That's not going to sell as well as Batman. Make sure you order your Batman line.
Right.
Make sure you order your Spider-Man line.
Like the book Keep the Lights On is Batman. But
the thing is, here's the thing. If I get sick of what they're afraid of is if I put a person on Witch for Hire, and they like that book better, or Courtney Crumrin or KRISS or anything else, and they happen to like that story better than they like what's going on in Batman, they're not going to quit buying just Batman. They're going to quit buying Detective. They're going to quit buying Legends of Batman, Robin, Red Robin, Nightwing, Catwoman, Batwoman, Batgirl, blah, blah, blah.
You don't want to convert people away from the mainstream superhero world. I mean,
and to me, that's a bad choice, because what happens when I stop caring about the superheroes? You haven't introduced me to the rest of what comics has to offer. I walk out the door and you lose all your money altogether.
Right.
You're better to, when a person says, I'm sick of this character or what's going on with this character, to say, you know what? You don't have to have every Batman comic book that ever existed, because you don't now.
Right.
You only have from point A to point B. Whenever you decide to stop for a while, and you can always come back to it. Let's look at what else there is. That to me is what I've always felt the retailers have a responsibility to do. And a lot of retailers don't agree with me. In fact, they get downright argumentative with me on it. But
it's a tough business, and I have sympathy for them. I totally understand.
But the thing is, they get mad at me, and it's like, well, you don't understand what it's like. And I can remember in college, I would tell them, you need to get Garfield in the store. You need to get For Better or For Worse. You need to get Bloom County. You need to get Calvin and Hobbes in the stores. Nobody wants that stuff. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, I go on to college campus, back on campus, and I would go through all the dorms and talk to all the girls who had these comics collections.
Right.
And see if these retailers don't want to carry these books. How do you feel about that? And then here comes the weekend, and he drives up, and I've got 500 girls standing outside picketing his store, screaming, "We want Calvin, we want Snoopy, we want Garfield," And here's the TV news people going, "Sir, is it true that you don't want to carry these books?" And the guy's going, "Hubba hubba hubba hubba." But where did this happen? It's like, this is what I'm trying to tell you. There's more than just Marvel DC fandom. And we have an obligation to be inclusive of that, because if we are inclusive of that, then you have more chance to bring in the general population to our art form.
Right. It's no coincidence that, we're a hyper-focused community.
Yeah.
The comic book world is full of, H. Poppy has something to say here.
Yeah, it says, it's up to the store to see how they want to sell and what they want to sell exactly.
So you ordered Courtney. He
pre-ordered it through the previews catalog. That's what you have to do a lot of times to get product from owning.
It's so frustrating, because it's like, like it makes my work buried treasure, which isn't really going to get me any, it's not going to make me a millionaire or anything.
Right. Yeah. Sure. A lot of parents in the past started buying Marvel and DC from the bookstore or other stores, and that's because that was what was readily available to them.
That's what's on the front counter. Yeah.
It's hard to promote a book like A Witch for Hire or a Courtney Crumrin if it's not in the not promoted in the bookstore, which it is getting promoted in bookstores. But
that said, yeah, Witch for Hire has got the full backing of Abrams, and they're gonna, I'm assuming that even if it fails by their standards, which is to say it doesn't sell 35,000 copies, it's still going to be a runaway hit by the standard of it's destined to be a runaway hit by the standard of 99% of comics, just by virtue of being an Abrams book rather than, a book published by a comic book publisher.
Well, the thing is, Abrams isn't just marketing. They're marketing the book through Diamond, so that gets to the comic shops.
Right. Yeah.
They've got book distributorship to the main chains. They have associations with the distributor that goes to the libraries. So the American Library Association is going to see this book. They've already got an established following for Courtney Crumrin, at least my library does. So I'm pretty sure that Witch for Hire will eventually wind up at
once people put the two together, they'll realize that it's similar.
And then you've got the schools as well. And I don't know how strong Abrams is compared to Scholastic, but I know your Good Neighbors work with Holly Black, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, seem to do fairly well in the schools. I don't know.
Yeah, Holly well in schools and but Abrams they also have this little thing called Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which is, it's...
if they got Diary of a Wimpy Kid, then yeah, the schools will hear about it.
The schools seem to do okay with that book. So, apparently, Abrams has inroads. So I'm hoping that helps me out and makes for a reasonably, so we're really talking about, my world, comparatively, my world is the little indie comic book stores. That's that's where I cut my teeth. I wanted to do, like the kind of work I wanted to do was indie comics. But it turns out that there was really, there's not a huge receptive nest for that kind of work to land on in my world.
We'll play that game. When I started in the 90s, a lot of retailers wouldn't carry me because I was black and white don't sell. Of course, this is the beginning of, this was just after the 80s black and white implosion. And it's also, Image was just coming up, so they're all big whoopie-doo about Image. And I was like, it wasn't just me. I was in college. I had 27 people doing different titles. So we had a whole line of books. And they wouldn't carry us because they were like, black and white don't sell, and this is wrong and that's wrong. So we're like, okay, next to the comic shop is a music shop. We go into the music store and explain to them that the comic retailer is a dick and doesn't want to support local comic book creators that are kids trying to make a living. And next thing you know, we're selling 400 copies of our books. We're outselling the guy next door in Spawn.
You're selling more. You're selling more comic books out of this music shop than the comic book shop owner is selling out of his comic book shop. Yeah.
And it'd be we go like 18 blocks down the street, and here's another comic shop. And he's like, same thing. I'm not going to carry your books. Behind this store is a arts and crafts store owned by two little old ladies in their 80s. Well, some of this stuff we don't really care for, but other comics we'll carry these books that are more all ages material that they approve of. Absolutely, man. Go ahead. 75, 100 copies. His best-selling book is X-Men at 30 copies.
Wow.
This is what was going on in the early 90s. And this is in the heyday of all the boom era of comics.
Right.
And so I always laugh at it when we say, it became a notion to me that indie comics can sell, but you got to go out in the world and let people see what you have. Right. And that's a very hard thing to do for when you're trying to do comics and have the time to do it, and then have the time to be the marketer and the distributor and all the other things.
Right. I mean, I can't afford it to get to the next book. And
Yeah,
also
exactly.
I mean,
well, see that I was able to do that because I had all those other people in the student group. We were all supporting each other.
right.
And we all backed each other. And it wasn't me going from store to store to store to store to store. Although I did do that.
Mm-hmm.
I had all the other guys doing the same thing. So we covered a lot more territory. And yeah, you got rejected, and you deal with rejection, and it's hard when you're getting rejected face to face, but you got each other's backs. When you're doing it sole on your own, it becomes overwhelming. That was the main thing.
That's a really interesting way to look at it, because it does. I mean, it would take not much more effort to sell a small line of comics than it would to sell an individual comic. But
you have the right people to work with you.
When I go and call up retailers, I'm just selling my one little latest book, and they're just like, okay, we'll see, and then they forget they have that conversation. I've spent a day making like 200 phone calls to 200 different people, to different retailers, and hoping that, and I could sell maybe a few books out of that, and I probably did, but I don't know if it was worth it every time.
H. Buckley asks, will you ever think of doing whichever books, any of your work, as webtoon or tapas?
I mean, that's a good question. I have not done that. And the reason is, as far as I know, most of those works are created from the standpoint of like each page is its own little finished product. And when I don't know that that's how it really works. I thought that, but everything that I've seen, like the one update per week is its own little standalone thing, and that's not how I work. I do, a page is a page, not a finished story.
Right. I'm not really sure. I'm not that familiar with the Tapas app. Webtoons. I know Riley Brown did Outrage with Fabian Nicieza, and it's a chapter. There's a chapter, and it scrolls up and down, but it is a whole story.
Oh, it's the whole thing. Well, I'd like to see that, and I'd like to talk to Fabian about. I've run into Fabian on Facebook. I don't know if he remembers who I am, but we've chatted amiably about this or that on Facebook before, so I could potentially reach out to him and say, "Hey, look, how does this work out for you? And is this a good place to like create something new?" Because I mean, one of the problems I run into with comics is, if I'm like, one of the reasons I did both Courtney Crumrin and Witch for Hire at the same time is because the previous year I did something called Knight's Dominion, which was a superhero story set in a sort of a Middle Eastern fantasy world.
Oh, right, Knight's Dominion. I apologize. I do have that, by the way.
Oh, right. Well, we can talk about it later if you want. And then I also did something called Heroines, which was kind of a sort of semi-funny, slightly satirical all-girl superhero team thing.
That was the one I was trying to get you to tell me about. I couldn't remember the name. I kept saying, what was the one that you solicited that I missed? And that was it, Heroines.
Oh, yeah, it's Heroines. It kind of came and went. It was with a new publisher that very quickly cratered. They just, as it often happens when you're not, like it's a tough business to get into. Like you either get enough momentum to keep going, or you just can't quite get the oomph going and you fall apart.
Yep, that's How do you feel about crowdfunding?
The publisher of Heroines, we tried crowdfunding the second volume. It didn't work out, and it was a lot of stuff that I don't quite understand how it works, and my understanding is that you learn by doing. I haven't found the time for it. It's one of those things where, how it is, it's something I should learn. And it's really easy to do stuff that you want to do and stuff that you have to do. Like, gun to your head, if this doesn't happen, the rent doesn't get paid. Yeah. But it's stuff that you really should do that's always at the bottom of the list.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I see a lot of people that are using Patreon and Indiegogo and Kickstarter and stuff. And I support a lot of that content. I actually spend a lot more money on that these days than I do mainstream comics.
Oh, fantastic.
But I find that when you run a campaign, you have to constantly, every day, be online promoting it.
Yeah.
And it's like you go, and to me, it's like, okay, if you're going to do that, it's kind of like being on tour for a book tour.
Mm-hmm.
Only you're on social media. And you got to go find podcasts like mine or others who want to have you as a guest and
right.
get you, and do all these things. And that's how it takes.
I get maybe 10, maybe potentially 10 backers.
Yeah, exactly. And if you get the right backer who has enough, or on a podcast that has enough readership, you can get a huge income influx. But a lot of the people don't like the ones that are most popular because they're kind of comics gatey. It's like if Aaron Lepresti just did his Wraith of God book, and he launched the premiere of the Kickstarter, or probably the Indiegogo campaign on Ethan Van Sciver's page. He made over $70,000 in one night.
There's a lot of people that are fighting a campaign, that like
right, yeah. And because he did that, he got just totally trashed by social media because he was, you're Comicsgate. And I'm like, guys, he did another Kickstarter program, another Indiegogo program for another book prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
In a whole month, he didn't even earn $13,000, and he didn't make his, the quota to make the book.
Yeah.
So you don't have a leg to stand on here. He didn't necessarily want to go on Ethan's channel to get promoted. It's just that's where the people are to hear about his book, and if they want to back it, so be it. If you don't like that, then hey, guess what? I got 50 subscribers versus Ethan's 115K. How about you bring some of your subscribers over here, and you don't have to worry about listening to Comicsgate, and you can hear other people talk about books.
Yeah, right.
That's the thing.
Is that Comicsgate is
it's a weird thing.
Repugnant on every level, and if it guaranteed me, if I could become a millionaire tomorrow, going on Ethan Van Sciver's webpage, and I could promote a book and get $1 million, like all those guys, because they're all guys, and they all backed the book because what I was selling was what they believed to be, so in support belief system. I'd say no thanks. I'd be like, you know what? I'm good. I'm doing fine. I don't need $1 million from these people. I don't need the sexist dollar. I don't need the white supremacist dollar. The racist dollar. I'm not interested in it. That's kind of my standpoint. I'm not going to tell people that they shouldn't do it, but if they like money and they really want success and they're willing to do the work to cultivate the racist dollar.
Yeah, well,
good luck with that. That's fine.
Again, I'm not so sure if it's all racist and sexist so much as it is a bunch of people, the big name guys that are there, like Ethan. They're all 20 to 30-year veterans who, like I said, the people that they were the flavor du jour, and the people that were their editorial enablers, if you will. They retired, or they got fired, or they left management, and the new people don't want to work with them. Well, I think that has far more to do with it than anything else. And they just don't have the common sense to acknowledge that truth. And then they make these lame ass excuses of, it's because I voted Trump, or it's because I'm, it's this or that, and then they want to trash everybody else and say, well, I'm better than them and I should be working, and that's where they're at fault. Because they're not better. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely. I mean, that's basically it. But I feel like the two. I mean,
Yeah, but no, you're right. There are people in that clique group who act a certain repugnant way, as you put it, and I agree with you. And the thing is
certainly not. It's not exclusive to that group of people.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Plenty of entitlement to go around in this business. Once anybody is successful, there is a temptation to feel that success was their right, and that they earned it. When the fact is, no, you never earn popularity. Popularity is something that just comes or it doesn't. Like you're lucky or you're not.
And it's not constant. It's not constant.
It's not something that harder work just gets. You know, like you have to have a talent for it, and you also have to have, you know, like some instinct on how to like maintain it, how to like self-promote, that kind of thing. That's something that I certainly don't have. But you also have to have you got lucky. Some people never get lucky. Some really talented people out there never get lucky.
Is it about the same as trying to promote a book in the past before the internet? Not really.
No, I think on the back before the internet, we had to go to shows and do our best to like.
Yeah, you went to conventions, or like I said, I went to different businesses. I would go to tattoo parlors. I would go to barber shops. I would go to music shops. I would go to hobby stores. I would go to mom and pop gas stations, mom and pop restaurants, and say, well, this is an adult, this is a black and white comic book. It's all ages. You can put it with your kid's meal as a coloring book, and we'll even go get you the crayons, and you know you can have it for X amount. You know, that's what you kind of have to do back then. Whereas the internet, it might give you more of an international exposure, but only if people are looking for you.
Right. Yeah, it's easier to get.
If people don't know you exist, it doesn't make any difference if you're with the internet or not.
Right. I mean, I think
you still have to put yourself out there.
You found a winning formula back then, and that's the trick. I mean, there is no one winning formula. Every case.
It's like today I can't do that because I'm 49 and I can't go on the campuses of every college at 49 years old and talk to 17 to 22-year-olds because now I'm their dad and they don't want to listen to me. When I'm 20, I'm 20 years old.
But I'm still cool.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. It's not the same as when we were in our 20s and we go on campus and they're the same age as us and they're going, oh wow, look at what this guy's doing and I'm the same age and I want to, wow man, that's a good. How do I do this?
I mean, I think there's a huge amount of like in terms of in all manner of art, there's a huge amount of that adds to the art's appeal. Like, do I see myself in the artist? Like one of the reasons I think that, the likes of Rob Liefeld got really successful is because he was just a little bit better than all of his fans, just better enough. He took this kind of crude fan art technique and refined it. The craft of it and the care, he put a little bit of extra work and extra craft and extra care into it to make it feel both professional but accessible. But
you got to remember, he was 7 years in the business before he was popular.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, he took a little.
He started in fanzines in like 83, 84, I think. And then I don't remember what year it was. He started at DC doing Hawk and Dove, and he wasn't inking himself there. He had Carl Kiesel inking him, so that helped him. That helped him.
Well, that's helped a lot of people. That helped Jack Kirby. I mean, Jack Kirby didn't ink his own stuff. He had somebody that really. I mean, there was an effect that happened between Kirby's pencils and a professional ink. Kirby's wacky craziness, and then a professional inker coming in and putting an authoritative stamp on that inking that made the magic. And it was magic. Don't get me wrong. It was magic.
That's why some people don't like certain inkers for him. Like they always say Vince Coletta ruins him. And I'm like, no, I think Vince does a really good job on him. It's just different. It's different interpretation of his pencils.
Yeah. I mean,
I love Vince's run on Thor.
But that's the magic of comics is like different. The collab. That's where when the collaboration really, when it goes right, it's really special. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that there's something about we're digressing all over the place.
Yeah, it's fine. That's the conversation.
What should we be talking about? Those in the audience, what do we got to say? What more do you want to hear about?
Yeah, well, Pockley, like I said, he asked whether it was not promoting the book from the past to now. I think you could still do what we did back then, but it's a little bit different right now. Like I said, at 49, plus it's not just my age; it's the way things have changed. Back in the 90s, you could get onto a college campus freely. Because of all the terrorism that's happened over the last 30 years, it's much more difficult. You have to go through channels, get approved by the administration, and then they're not going to really want you to go from dorm to dorm. They're going to want you to go to a specific place, and then they'll advertise it, and people come to you. But it's not the same as what I went to go door to door to door in the dorms back in the 90s.
But man, you put the footwork in.
Yeah.
I mean, wore out your shoes.
Well, I didn't mind doing it though, because I just loved talking about the stuff that we were doing at that time, and really just about comics in general.
Yeah.
Whereas today it's a little bit different, because we're all wearing masks wherever we go if we're smart, and it's a different environment, and so if you're going to promote things the way I did it 30 years ago today, you kind of have to look at how society has changed and where does your book place? A book like Witch for Hire, okay, I can promote a Witch for Hire to the local schools. I can promote for hire to the local library. I can promote Witch for Hire if there's a local YMCA. I can promote that there. But can I take that same Witch for Hire book and go get that book sold to a barbershop? Probably not. It's a little too long for a barbershop.
It's not a local book or anything like that,
Right.
I mean, unless, I suppose. But you're not going to sell books in barbershops these days. I mean, that's what the internet is for.
Yeah.
And the internet is dominated by, Amazon and certain, other monolithic.
Right. A lot of the small time businesses that I was able to go through 30 years ago aren't there. The channels aren't there as much as because of that stuff. But I guess my thing is you find a balance between the two. Do your internet, but then within your local community, say an hour's drive radius, if you've got a vehicle to drive, try to find people that are interested in promoting your stuff. I mean, I could definitely see, when you Serena do GLOOMCOOKIE, I could see that book selling in tattoo parlors left and right.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we played our cards right and really approached it right, yeah, absolutely. And I kind of, one of the things that I liked about Oni was that I was hoping that they would. I mean, that was one of the things I liked about the Courtney Crumrin series is that, it has I tried to give it enough of a hipsterness to be the sort of book that you could sell at a children's, sell in, at a library to tweens and young adults, but also sell in a tattoo parlor.
Right.
But I feel like I kind of ended up feeling for a lot of the tattoo parlor type people a little bit too much like something you just get in a
it wasn't dark enough. It wasn't goth enough or whatever,
Yeah, it's not aggressive enough, but it is right on the edge. That was the thing.
Right. It is right there. It just depends on, again, I would be the guy that says the tattoo parlor, they don't want kids in the store. Okay, I get it. But people bring their kids to sit.
Right.
And it's here have a Courtney Crumrin to read.
Here's
that.
But I mean,
it's better than having him look at nude girls' tattoo books.
Yeah, it's a real family-friendly place you got here.
Yeah,
but
you know what I'm saying. But I mean, it's fun. But
one of the things that made Courtney or made GLOOMCOOKIE cool is that it had this perfect balance of being cute and sexy and goth.
Right.
It managed to be all those things. It was adorable and sweet and kind of innocent, but it was also a little bit sexy, and it was also goth. And I never quite nailed that balance again. I mean, that was Serena doing that balance. I mean, she nailed it without
Serena,
even. I mean, she just.
You gotta remember though, you're also talking about Serena. The characters in GLOOMCOOKIE are pretty much all elder teens and adults.
They're adults, yeah. They're young adults. They're like 20-somethings, early 20s.
So there's a different dynamic that you can write, but you can't write for Courtney or for Faye because you're not old enough for that.
I mean, I could probably start. I mean, Faye's like 15. I could probably have her have
eventually, yeah, it evolved to that. But I'm saying, it would be interesting.
Be a little, like kissing. It's not going to get.
That's fine. But I'm saying I don't think I would see I can't see Faye walking around in a tight corset necessarily.
That's a good point. Maybe it's my art style. Maybe I should think about that some more. Yeah. I mean, do I want? Yeah. Is that the wrong direction to go in? I honestly hadn't really thought about it, to be honest. That's
what I'm saying. I mean, you could do, an older version of this sort of thing that you do with Courtney and Faye, and go and skew a little bit older, and then deal with the issues psychologically and emotionally that we deal with in our 20s and our 30s.
Yeah.
And then you could go a little bit. That would be more for a tattoo older generation anyway, because most people in their tattoos don't get them until they're 18 anyway.
But that's the thing. I mean, the question then remains, is there an audience for that? Because the question is, I mean, yeah, the GLOOMCOOKIE did really well back in the day when you could sell it at Hot Topic, because it sold in Hot Topic.
Oh yeah, it sold.
But there is no Hot Topic selling comic books now. That's not a thing anymore. Like Hot Topic doesn't sell comic books. They sell, as far as I know, they certainly don't sell all comics. They're selling Marvel stuff. They're not really selling, all lifestyle stuff, because that's not really a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And like things like queer lifestyle stuff and that kind of thing. And that all sells in mainstream bookstores. Because it's not alternative anymore. It's what everybody's talking about now.
Yeah.
Which is, that's good for me, because I always wanted to do stuff like that anyway, because it's interesting, and nobody was talking about it when I was a kid, or when I was first starting out as a creator.
Right. Well, it was talked about, but it was talked about in different circles, not openly, comparatively.
Right. And it was considered inappropriate for kids, which God, thank God that's over.
Yeah, I that's interesting, because I can remember, of course, we grew up in the era of, gay equals AIDS and all that nonsense.
Right.
And I can remember knowing gay people in high school and early college. And you could tell, I mean, there's certain people have certain mannerisms that just
those are the ones you could tell.
Yeah. And it would be like, okay, so you're gay. I don't care. I'm not. Respect my space. I'll respect yours. And that's the bottom line of it.
For you, not for everybody.
No, not for everybody. But that was the bottom line for me. I just I didn't see the point of the way other people treated others in that regard. Right. It was like, it's like, okay, so he's gay. You're black. Do you want me to mistreat you? Or they're gay. You're, a redneck Native. Hit boy. Well, Native American, I really don't play that, because I am part Native American. I'm part I'm Chippewa and Shoshone, and so there's always that kind of thing where they didn't tend to pick on that, you know.
No.
So much.
Well, I mean, that's something I know.
Just they didn't understand it, but it's like I can remember the Asian American kids would get picked on, or you know, whatever. It's like, why are you picking on people? What is it that you are trying to say about whatever? You know,
Yeah, it's
I never quite, you know, it was like, you know, well, they're not like me. Well, they're not supposed to be like you. We're all supposed to be our own people, you know, and that was always my thing with that. And it's like, how are they harming you? What are they doing that's so bad? You know, I just, you know, now there are people who are harmful, and you know, but it's you know, and I used to get in fights with people that were harmful, but you know, the people that were harmful were the ones that were bullies and picking on people in gym class. You know, it's when you get guys that are 6'3" and they're picking on a guy who's 4'9", weighs 98 pounds. Yeah, it's time for me to sneak up from behind and give him a waist lock and give him a body slam. And the coach just goes,
in high school, I gotta say.
you know, and they're like, and remember, I'm 5'2", 120, and I do that to the 6'3" guy, and they're like, that's what I'm saying. They were like, okay, well, now we're going to pick a fight. Okay, you just know what I did to you when you weren't expecting it. Now that I know you're expecting it, what do you think I'm going to do to you? You know, that was, they're like, but I'm bigger, I'm stronger. Are you?
Yeah, but are you though?
Are you though? Well, this is the thing. This is the coach. Are you though? Who's got the push-up record? He does. Who's got the pull-up record? He does. Who's got the you know, the weightlifting records? He does. You're bigger. You're not stronger. That was the thing.
There's the entitlement again. There was this assumption that, well, I'm the biggest, so I get to have my own way.
Yeah. That was part of
it. Everybody, and you know, and that's how they were treated, because that's what people's perception of bigger means. The same way that's what people's perception of white means.
Yeah,
you know,
I guess it's true.
You're saying that, you know, you're part Native American. You know, I'm part Arab American. It never came up because, you know, nobody's looking at this and going, oh, that person isn't white.
Exactly.
So
that's just it. If I had black hair and my skin tone was like a shade or two darker, and you know, Brightring is not my official last name. It's my artistic pseudonym, and it's an honorary tribal name from the Chippewa. But my last name is Germanic, so of course they think I'm white.
Right.
And it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But the thing is, okay, I'm Germanic. Does that make me a Nazi? No. You know, it's like, yeah. So, you know, it's, you know, people make too many assumptions about anybody for whatever reasons. You know,
but it just goes to show that your presentation was white, so you got the privilege of not being treated like garbage compared to like other people who were just as Native American as you, but presented Native American. Same with me.
Exactly.
You know, I grew up looking white. I grew up being white because white, it turns out, is just presentation. You know.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing, though. You know, they would always say, you know, especially when I moved out west, when I was living in Nevada. Of course, I had the tan then because you know how sunny it is out in Nevada.
Oh, yeah, you can. I can get real dark when it gets sunny. You know.
Yeah. So you get tan and you're wearing, you know, a Wolfpack tribal necklace, and you're wearing, you know, and that now they realize I'm doing stuff, but I just don't wear, you know, like I'll wear a cross so people assume I'm Christian.
Right.
I'm not really. The cross is was a gift to me from a girlfriend who passed away.
Oh,
I wear it in memory of her more than anything else.
Right.
That doesn't mean I don't believe in God. It doesn't mean that I don't think you should believe in God or whatever. I think it's a personal choice and a personal journey for every individual.
Right.
But people make assumptions of that symbolism. You know,
but
so
remember, all of these symbols, all of this skin color, all of the, and the reactions that you're talking about, that you're complaining about, it's the people aren't looking for, they don't care about what you see in the symbols. They don't care about what cross means to you. They're looking for us versus them. Are you us or are you them? If you're them, they can do whatever they want to you. They can, like, you don't the laws of civilization don't apply to you, because that only applies to us, not them. If you belong to the them group, all bets are off. And that's the problem, right?
And that's the problem with Comicsgate and with different clique groups within that have always been in comics. Comicsgate is not something new. It's just the most recent name brand, if you will, of the different clique groups that have always been in comics. Obviously, there's what do you want to call them? Pecking orders. To me, it's like, excuse me, did I get published? Yes, I did. Did I get paid for my work? Yes, I did. That makes me just as professional as you.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And you didn't get paid as much as me. Okay, maybe your employer had more of a budget. Good for you.
And like, why does there even have to be a pecking order? Why does there even have to be like what does it serve? Other than somebody's sense of entitlement. Right.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not that it means nothing, but it does. It's a superficial thing, because, like I said, as soon as you're no longer the flavor du jour, you're no longer that in that pecking order. You're gone. And you could be gone any moment. It just depends. But it's interesting because, like, the Van Sciver, he lost his. He lost that kind of primacy of place that he once had, because, well, the world moved on, and he lost because no longer the flavor of the month, right?
Well, basically, he left because he was with Jeff Johns. He was Jeff Johns' basic collaborator for so long, and then Jeff left the management to go to Hollywood. And Jeff Johns, and without Jeff,
Jeff Johns went off, and of course, his loyalty is not really. He's not famous for it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, my thing is, though, there was nobody left in the DC management that really wanted to work with Ethan.
Well, I mean, he sounds like he burned his bridges.
Yeah.
And that the I voted for Trump thing was his excuse, but it was like, well, it doesn't surprise me that he voted for Trump. That the kind of person that would literally alienate everybody he worked with also happened to be a Trump voter. But then that's just my personal political bias.
Sure.
I mean, I have family that voted for Trump, and they're not the worst people in the world. They're incredibly warm, wonderful people, and have strong sense of, family ties and honor and all these things. But it doesn't surprise me that this person, but also just the idea that he jumped on that as the excuse instead of taking any responsibility.
Exactly.
Tells you, but he also made a smart move by positioning himself as the wounded Trump voter who was ousted by this, like, he created this narrative where he's the underdog, who was ousted by the liberal kind of elite that like closed ranks and just like ostracized him for what he believed in, because let me tell you, the type of person that he attracted to him are exactly the type of people that do ostracize you for what you believe in. And it, and have no, and that type of person has no interest in looking at their own behavior and thinking maybe this is the reason, which, honestly, I think is an incredibly, like, to me, that's like the prime purpose of being a human, is to learn to be a better person, every day in every way. Catch yourself doing the bad things and go, no, we don't do that, and try to be better, and not be perfect, but always try to be better. You know,
Yeah,
like we're not going to be perfect. I'm going to be an asshole again to some collaborator or other that doesn't deserve it. I hope I won't. You know, I'm going to try not to be. I'm sure that I had a lot of pushing and pulling around Witch for Hire with the book design, and I'm sure the book designer isn't in a hurry to work with me again. You know, and it, like I got the book back, and I'm like, wow, this is a fucking great looking book. Why was I such a jerk?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
Well,
I'm
no,
trying.
you're right. The book
I try
design
to
is
be
very
better.
nice on this. I do love the coloring on this. Um,
Oh yeah, but that is my coloring actually. I was very pleased with the way the colors came out. I went for, I had just done a Courtney book, and the traditional Courtney colors are purples and blues.
mhm.
And so the new Courtney book was no exception. It is called, by the way, for anybody, if anybody's still listening, it was the new Courtney book is called the CRUMRIN Chronicles. I have it right here. There it is. And it's a new book, and it
This is more
stars,
about Courtney, Courtney's younger brother, and Courtney's
that was
experiences with
Will
her.
here. And yeah, and so it's like Will as the young adventurer and Courtney as sort of like in the Uncle Aloysius role. Just for your FYI.
Yeah.
But when I had just finished coloring it, I'm like, I'm not going to do another book that's purple and blue. I need to come up with a different color scheme. And I thought, well, Halloween is coming up. Let's do autumnal colors. And so what I started with was, let's do greens and oranges. And that's Witch for Hire. And I'm really happy with the way that the book has an overall greens and orange kind of thing that I think is kind of rare in, like, you don't see a lot of green in, green is a color you don't see as much in comics. You see it, but not that often.
Yeah, that's true. Let me see if I can find. I'm trying to find. Let's see, Amulet that way. I know I saw it online. I just got to find it here.
Oh, Amulet the book?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I have one just here. I'm like my.
No. I want to show people where they can find it online to buy it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
If I can find it.
If not, just we'll put it in the. I'm going to repost this interview once it goes up again, and we'll just put it in the description.
Yeah.
Because I really, I got to get back to posting. I don't know how to post daily. I don't have anything new to say. I mean, I have all kinds of new things to say about anything but me, but I don't know how to talk about myself every day.
Okay, I found it.
Oh, great.
Okay, you go to abramsbooks.com/abramscategory/comics, and you will find it amongst the many awesome selections that Abrams offers. It's like the 6th or 8th piece listed in on the page. Let me see if I can share the page real quick. Okay.
Ooh, here we go.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's 8.
Okay, I'm right there. All right.
So
right next to the classic blacklight posters.
Yep. And you can get it, right there from abrambooks.com direct and have them ship it to you for $21.99. You can also get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble Books, A Million.
Right. The initial description was for the softcover. It's $12.99 for the softcover. There's a hardcover that you can get.
This is the hardcover. Yeah, this is the hardcover edition. Yeah, so that's cool.
So I'm very pleased about that. I do like having hardcovers.
Yeah. So you can get the hardcover for $21.99, and they probably have the softcover on here somewhere too. I just don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You can always email them and ask. But it's there you go. So again, that is the website. Check it out, and I'll try to put that back, edit that back into the description after this runs.
Oh, much
again.
obliged. If you, if you want.
If it's not on the description, it'll be in the comments after the description on the YouTube page.
Well,
So
and I love commenting on YouTube, so I'll probably, if people want to comment, I'll probably go in and like check and see and respond.
Yes. Alrighty then. So that's pretty much all for tonight. I think it's getting let's see, about 8 o'clock, 8:30 your time. It's probably time for dinner for you.
Yeah, well, no, dinner is at 10.
Oh, dinner's at 10 for you?
I had lunch shortly before we started around.
Oh, that's
5.
right. That's right.
Lunch, so dinner time is 10.
Okay, makes sense. We're both night owls, so we do crazy things. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on to the show tonight, Ted. And we're going to have you come back in the future. We'll talk once I can find some of the other stuff, maybe, that I haven't got of yours. Whoop.
Oh, did we lose you?
No.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about,
we'll
Night
talk
Dominion or Heroines, like any of those projects. Because at some point I got to relaunch that and start it all over again.
Yeah, and we can also talk about craft and do a live draw even.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Yeah, let's do live draws. We could do like, can we do, I wonder if it's possible to do like a digital sort of like thing where you draw some and then I draw on it and then you draw on it kind of thing where we pass it back and forth.
That I don't know, but we can try.
Yeah, why not? It'd be fun. It'd be different. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. What actually would be cool is if you can do the pencils and I do the inks.
Ooh, that's a fun idea. I'm happy to do that.
Because I'm more of an inker type guy when I work with collaboration for art.
Great. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to work on that. We'll talk about that more private on a private channel on mine and set that up for a future episode.
Very exciting.
Alrighty, man. Okay,
All
well,
right.
let's go ahead and stop that screen and then finish go into our exit for the day.
Thank you so much. You are a wonderful interviewer.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But if you guys liked our video, or you think others might, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from this channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. To reach me, you go to Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter, at LewisBrightRave2. You can see my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You're watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven on YouTube exclusively. And if you have questions or you want to ask me about commission or something like that, try Quoth the Raven LBR72 at gmail.com first. And I'll try to answer your question live on air or via email. And if you can't, if I don't get back to you via that email, try lewisbrightraven at yahoo.com. We'll see you guys next time. As always, thank you for watching. And thanks once again, Ted, for being here. And we'll talk again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.